Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase anxiety and depression. That's what it says. And you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally, you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet you keep right on doing what you're doing. Right?
Heads up, ladies and gentlemen. Heads up. Heads up, ladies and gentlemen. Heads up. Zuckerberg under fire in congressional testimony yesterday. It was very, very fiery.
Yeah, Josh Hawley asked him to stand up and turn around and apologize to the parents in the room. I saw that viral clip.
Holy cow. And he did.
He did. I don't think he should have had to, but he did.
And Stephanie Bell she got fired up. Hannah, she wasn't fired up till I mentioned, you want to talk about Zuckerberg? And it's like, oh, yeah, I got some thoughts about that. So we'll have to see.
I believe she said she had a hot take.
Yeah, and John Marsh, you probably have a thing or three to say about that as well, as you're buried in your Facebook.
I thought that was, it was one of those deals where I thought the one line by the one senator, he said, the foothills of creepy was the one that got me.
But I'm sorry, Josh Hawley, have you ever been a teenage girl? I mean, he's blaming all of this on Facebook. I grew up without Facebook, and being a teenage girl sucked. And it wasn't because of any sort of platform, right? They said, oh, you're learning about, you're too young, you're learning about cutting, and you're learning about eating disorders, and you might be learning about sex and these kind of things. Okay, I learned about all of that because I was a middle school girl. I didn't learn about it. There was no Facebook.
Details about drugs, sex, and whatever from Stephanie Bell at 6:35. No.
Well, and also just a reminder, you can like us on Facebook at Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and you can watch us live on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page.
And, it's, okay, so creepy. But back then, you know what we did have? And John Marsh, I know you know about this. No, I'm serious. You know what we had? We had AOL chat rooms when I was a kid, and you could get on there, and you know what? They were creepy, and they were weird, and they were dirty, and they were not healthy. But and now we have
pre-MySpace days.
Correct. And and so the platform is not the problem. And so I think the same people who say Facebook is why teenage girls have a hard time are the same people who say people don't kill people, guns kill people. We as conservatives, we say people are bad and they use guns to do bad things. And so why wouldn't, when we are looking at these platforms, this technology, who arguably that does a lot of very good things in the world, why for guns is it the people's problem? And then we look at these platforms and we're like, people aren't bad. These platforms, they create the bad. No, there are bad people who use these tools for bad things. If they didn't have Facebook, they would have AOL chat rooms. I found out my kids the other week were chatting on, they were playing chat. So my kids don't have their own phones, and they're getting to the age where they're asking. Mm-hmm. They don't have social media, and that's my rule as a parent, right? We just don't do it.
How old are they?
The oldest is 12.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that's getting to the age where, everyone else has a phone. They have to go to the school nurse and ask to use the landline to call me if they're at school and they have a question.
But doesn't that counter what you were just saying? I mean, you see some harm in letting them have access to social media.
No,
you're purposely practicing restriction.
No, they will get it when I feel like it's appropriate. But
when they're 25? Yeah.
When they're 25. But I just, I don't have and they will have it soon. Yeah. But as a parent, I feel like you have to take some responsibility for what your kids are exposed to, and blaming, the tool is not it. But so anyway, they don't have a phone. They don't have social media. But my son's been playing chess online, and I thought, cool. He's on some website. He's playing against a computer. Apparently, you can play against other people. Mm-hmm. And
no, that's good.
But there's a chat window, and so he was telling me, I played chess against a 15-year-old kid in France, and I've been working on Duolingo, and so I was practicing my French on chess.com in this chat room. And I immediately went back to AOL chat rooms, and I'm like, ooh, should I be nervous that my kids can chat with random people online?
He clearly is the son of a self-professed nerd. Yeah,
I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it.
That's good. Congratulations to you. But now I'm gonna push back on you on that after we remind folks that we're going to be talking about the president going to East Palestine. Is it Palestine? Is it Palestine? Let's call the whole thing off. Alina Habba apparently is going to be replaced as Donald Trump's lawyer. I find that interesting. Another love him and leave him, and I don't mean love him in a romantic sense. We're going to be talking about the economy as well. Aaron Hedlund joins us later in the show, and at 8:10. And we also have Mary Elizabeth Coleman. Yeah. When is she? 6:30? 6:35? I think so. 7:10.
She has announced.
Well, there was debate whether she was going to be able to come on because there's things going on in the Senate.
There's a lot going on, and importantly for her, and we've been covering all of the drama, but hopefully we can get to the substance here very quickly.
Yes.
And importantly for her, she is going to be handling the initiative petition bill. So if you recall, there were like
instead
11...
of Koenig. Yeah, Koenig was handling.
Koenig's got the education stuff.
But I thought he was. Okay, so whatever.
And so, yeah.
We need flashcards.
No, but so, getting down into the details about, okay, if we're going to reform the initiative petition process, what does that actually look like? Because we've heard, oh, they need more signatures. Oh, they need a different type of vote. Oh, they need, a supermajority. Oh, there's, and there's been so many proposals floating out there.
Almost a dozen came across their desk, didn't they? Just in the Senate.
Yes.
What if we just restricted all incoming money from people who are headquartered outside of Missouri?
How do you do that?
You can do anything if you're the legislature, can't you?
No, that's terrible. No, but honestly, from somebody who does campaign finance.
Should Soros be able to come in and do that?
But from somebody who does campaign finance for a living, I have tons of clients, right? They're national companies.
Yeah.
And so, maybe they have a headquarters or whatever. It's not in Missouri, but they do tons of business. They're great for Missouri. They do tons of business in Missouri. They have local franchises all over. But maybe the money and their headquarters is, they're incorporated in Delaware and their bank account is somewhere else, right? And so should they not be allowed to, why should, this other person be, why should Golden Corral not be allowed to give, but, Woody's can give?
I like it when you guys disagree.
Well, hang on, though. If you're doing, I understand if you have a presence in the state. But there are there are pro-abortion groups that really don't have any standing in this state, but they're big pro-abortion groups. They're the ones, driving. Planned Parenthood, I guess Planned Parenthood does have a presence.
They're nasty, but at that point, it is down to the people, and I think you hear that, and you can see that in the ethics reports, in that this new pro-abortion measure that is being funded by out-of-state interests, but we know that, and it's our job to let people know this is not Missouri people who want this. This is not the same as the Ohio measure. It is this extreme abortion on demand up until the day of birth. People from out of state that are trying to push this on us, and the people have a choice, and I hope the people make the right choice.
I think with the regulations, that are in place now or potentially could be in the future, I guess the old line is the super PACs will find a way regardless.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I guess, and at the end of the day, I'm a bit of a Darwinist when it comes to politics, a bit of a, survival of the richest, the fittest, whatever. If you're so stupid and so disengaged that you don't look at the text of a bill or try to get as much weedy information before you go to the polls, and you listen to some stupid commercial, and the Republicans do it, the Democrats do it, the pro-lifers do it, the pro-abort, everyone misrepresents and stretches and embellishes the truth. But if you don't really sit down and think this clearly, and you don't want babies killed until the day of birth, and you vote for it, well, then you're going to have to watch some grisly videos of that happening 2 years from now, and maybe you'll say, gosh darn it, maybe I ought to start thinking about what I'm voting for. Yeah. I'm sorry,
Yeah, the measure that's going on, that they're asking you out, when you get that clipboard, you need to read it.
Absolutely.
It is extreme. It is scary. It is something that Missourians have never supported in the past, and it is, it's not just a reversal back to Roe times. It is something that not even Ohio, not Kansas. I mean, this measure it is extreme.
It's abominable. But I would challenge folks to even go beyond the ballot language. There was this big fight with Secretary of State Ashcroft and so forth with the language, and I think that we have to be clear about it. That That's a sort of a very, very thumbnail Cliff Notes version, right? I mean, it doesn't really touch on the essence of the bill.
You're exactly right. And I would credit some people. You know, we heard, oh, the marijuana thing is 41 pages, blah, blah, whatever. Okay. That's done and done. But the abortion measure is 1 page, so you can look it up online. And read the actual words. Don't let anyone else tell you what's in there.
And it's going to take groups like, I know you're involved with a group that's trying to just get the truth out about what it really means, and especially being a lawyer, you can explain where various provisions can be interpreted and what it really means, because it sounds innocuous on its surface. You know, if you read it real quickly and just go like, oh yeah, okay, well it only allows it to the time of viability and whatever, and then you read the exceptions. Well, the exception pretty much opens the floodgates.
It really does. And so I'm a part of a group called Missouri Stands with Women. We have got a website, and all of the pro-life groups are aligned in that this is the most extreme thing Missouri has ever seen, and people should really decline to sign. If you get that petition in your face like Hannah did at the DMV,
did you?
Or she got
That was for raising a minimum wage in the state, and he was practically right in front of the door to the DMV that I already did not want to go to.
They knocked on my home door, the minimum wage people. But if you get that clipboard and you're a conservative, you need to be very careful.
Well, what about the rhetoric and all? You know, the whole rhetoric that we've heard from both sides referencing what could potentially end up on the ballot on the abortion issue. I mean, gosh, remember when Attorney General Bailey came on with us and said, you know, that the lawsuit being heard by that judge in St. Louis was led by Satanists, and that didn't pan out. I think for a lot of people out there, they don't know who to believe.
Well, that's right. That's why they need to listen to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, because we are truth seekers. We
Goes
are.
Without saying.
That's what we do.
And I'm telling you what's in the measure, but I'm also telling you can go on the Secretary of State's website, and in a single page, you can go read it for yourself.
And, you know, it's sort of fun to go on the, what is it, Missouri.house or Senate.missouri.gov? What is it?
Senate.mo.gov.
Senate.mo.gov or House.mo.gov. And look at the text of a bill. If your district senator or representative, you hear about something or you're interested in a particular issue and you hear about a bill, maybe we talk about it here. They've got these bill summaries that I think are pretty fair.
I was going to say the bill summaries actually are pretty good.
Yeah,
There's a whole group of staff members that write, a lot of attorneys that write that summary, and so
fairly represented generally.
Generally,
okay, but you still should read the text. Which can put you to sleep.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I mean, I have clients, I don't lobby, but I have clients that I encourage that they have a situation and I say, you need to get a lobbyist. You got to have somebody watching this, because of course they substitute things and they amend things. And if you're not there every day, it's kind of hard to, yesterday I had to phone a friend. I'm like, did the Senate go? They went in, but they weren't in for very long. Like, what's happening? And so it was, really those people that are there every day can give you a lot of good info.
We're going to step aside and come back and do the daily DC rundown. We're going to circle back around to this Facebook and Instagram. The old boy's got a couple
is under fire. Of course, Josh Hawley went viral in a clip on the socials for asking Zuckerberg to stand up and turn around and apologize to all the parents in the room about exploitation of children, which he did. And, Josh Hawley has been a long time hater of big tech and in support of reforms of Section 230. And we saw that come out. And actually, the hearing, for the most part, we weren't really surprised, but it's a very bipartisan issue to hate on big tech. I think I stand alone in that I don't hate big tech.
Wait for it.
I really don't. That's the huge news out of Congress yesterday. Of course, we have the impeachment articles from the day before from Mayorkas, but that's still waiting to get to the Senate floor. We are also, the House yesterday also approved we need to talk to Aaron Hedlund about this. But, Aaron Hedlund had been telling us, hey, like the one thing about this election that might really change your pocketbook besides just the out of control inflation are these Trump era tax cuts that are set to expire, I think in 2025. And he said, this is huge. Not only is it for businesses, but for some individuals. And it will really change your bottom line if, we get Biden again and then he doesn't renew these. Now, yesterday, the House approved a $78 billion measure, and it would renew some of these tax cuts, mainly for businesses, and then also this child tax credit. And you and I have talked about this before. There's a lot of consternation in the Senate over if you don't pay any taxes, so it's called a refundable credit. And the child tax credit typically is. So you can pay zero taxes and then the government owes you money. And I think I'm all in the camp of, if you want to hand out tax credits, if I'm paying, and I pay less, I feel like that's fair. But if I'm not paying anything, should you really just get that's universal?
It's a welfare check.
Yeah. No, it 100%.
Grassley said that. He said this is going to be a political win for Joe Biden. Here we are in a political year, an election year.
And it's like COVID again. We're just passing out free money.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Well, you know how I feel about redistribution of wealth anyway, including subsidies for childcare.
As we're entering the tax season, I'm stressed about it as well. So that passed the House yesterday. We need to figure out from Aaron Hedlund exactly what wasn't. So they re-upped some of these, but they left some of them on the table. But of course, we're hearing that it is going to run into some hurdles in the Senate. The other thing, Randy, you played earlier this week this clip of Ilhan Omar talking, and she was talking.
The government will do what Somalia wants.
Correct.
Basically.
And the comments were pretty terrifying. But now she is actually, Representative Tom Emmer is saying we need an ethics probe. If she's saying she's sitting in our Congress and she is doing the work of a foreign nation, this is a problem.
Right.
And so and another investigation on top of the investigation that we heard about earlier this week of our own Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush over her security.
Yeah. It's one thing if you want to, we support Israel, but there's a process for supporting Israel. It's not because we have someone who's elected who says, I'm here doing the bidding of Israel, right? That's a totally different
And Israel's not a terrorist state.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. And then also we are hearing from President Biden this that he's issued the statement that it's, the healthcare problems are all the pharmaceutical companies' fault. And Randy, I've heard a lot from you from healthcare, but I haven't heard you point the finger yet at pharmaceutical companies. And, there are some pretty high prices. So I need to get your take on it.
Don't get me tech. Did I say?
It's kind of like the Chiefs playing the raisins,
and
right?
The raisins. I said that the other day, didn't I? The Chiefs playing the raisins. I'm thinking about warm milk and lukewarm, and I got milk warm. Okay, and we got producer Hannah.
Hello.
Who loves, you're the goddess of TikTok, right?
I don't know about that, but we use a lot of big tech here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Some of us use it.
Why, Mr. Zuckerberg, why should your company not be sued for this? Why is it that you can claim, you hide behind a liability shield, you can't be held accountable? Shouldn't you be held accountable personally? Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I think I've already answered this. I mean, these
Well, try us again. Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I view my job and the job of our company as building the best tools that we can to keep our community safe.
Well, you're failing at that.
Well, Senator, we're doing an industry-leading effort. We build AI tools
nonsense. Your product is killing people. Will you personally commit to compensating the victims? You're a billionaire. Will you commit to compensating the victims? Will you set up a compensation fund?
Okay, so that's some fundraising material from Josh Hawley, right?
Josh Hawley had his cranky pants on.
Yeah, well,
that's classic Hawley.
So did Ted Cruz. So, I mean, a lot of them had, and it was bipartisan. Lindsey Graham was on fire. Stephanie, however, is here to valiantly defend Mr. Zuckerberg. All he does is good, true, and right, right?
No, but it's not his fault. You know, like if we penalize like Facebook, where we get TikTok.
I'm sorry.
You know, and we had as kids, you know, and they're like, well, this is what's wrong with kids today, and you know, they learn about bad things like cutting and eating disorders and sex on Facebook. You know, I learned about that when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
And I knew about it all, and we had all of those problems, and being a teenage girl was awful, and I don't wish middle school on anybody, and I'm about to have a house full of I have one middle schooler, I'm about to have another one.
Being a teenage anything is awful. It's a time of transition, of uncertainty.
Facebook's fault.
Okay, however, I know it's only Thursday, but John...
Wait, my
Stephanie,
popcorn's not done popping
Hannah,
yet. Hang on.
I want you to open the good book to Genesis 2:17.
Okay.
And the Lord said to them, remember?
Facebook bad. Orange man bad.
That's what Genesis says.
But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die.
Can we get the New International Version? Because I have no idea what you just said.
That was the King James.
KJV.
That was the KJV. Here's the voice. This is Hannah. This is Hannah's.
Okay.
I only require that you abstain from eating the fruit of one tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Beware, italicized, beware, the day you eat the fruit of this tree, you will certainly die. What I'm getting at here is...
I got that one. Thank you.
What I'm getting at is here, the Lord told us early on, he knew that it was fine if we would just listen to the Lord, go the Lord's way. You're created in the image of God. When you thirst for too much and you try to know too much, along with the good, you will sup of the evil. You will drink of the evil. And once you do that, all is lost. And look at what happened. Look at the mess the human race is in now. Let me give you a Zuckerberg example. My wife and I talked about this last night.
Okay.
Boy, did I get fired. She was fired up over this. Here's the deal. Ted Cruz in the testimony yesterday showed something about, I think it was about pedophiles or about child pornography. And it was a warning that flashes up on Facebook that says, the content you're about to see is very explicit and blah, blah, blah. And we recommend some resources for you before you watch this. And you have two choices. One is, let's go to the resources. And the other is, see it anyway. That's caca. Here's the problem. 3 years ago, some years ago, I shot a deer.
I
shot a deer.
Ago.
Yeah, and it was
I was
explicit.
proud of it because I think it was either my first crossbow kill, or it was a really good kill, or it was a tough kill, or it was a long hunt, or whatever. I don't remember.
Hannah's been on dating apps, men with their fish. I mean,
but
men are very proud of themselves.
I was proud of my deer.
Yes.
And she took a picture of me with the deer was hanging up at that point. We'd responsibly gutted the deer. Field dressed the deer. I got chewed out for that on the afternoon show one time. We field dressed the deer and we hung it up. And here I was standing by the deer feeling pretty good about my hunt. And that got taken off of Facebook. We got reprimanded for that. What the heck? They're leaving this kind of stuff on that talks about drugs, sex, pedophiles, violence. Kids are getting exposed to this, and that's okay. But my dear, Randy's innocent little deer, somehow that what did not meet Facebook's holier-than-thou standards. Now, what say you?
I posted a picture of my half-dead fish, and it didn't get taken down. No, I can't speak for the
Stephanie's beta fish is going through it.
It's random.
It's not random, but I mean, they're doing a lot of work, right? Like none of big tech has said, you know what we're in the business of. We really like child pornography. No, they don't, and they're trying to.
Yes, they do because they because they get clicks.
No.
And clicks mean addiction because it feeds the addictive centers in our brain.
All we need is Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and that is the only addiction we need. No, no one is in support of that, and they're doing things, and they testified about all of the things they're trying to do to crack down on that. But like speaking here locally, right? Like I talk to parents whose kids are young, and there's that stupid AirDrop feature in Apple where you can just like send pictures to people unknowingly. Like,
that's entertaining sometimes.
I did open one on a plane once.
Ooh.
It was great. But I
used to AirDrop random memes to people in big lecture halls in class.
But I know
college.
Parents of people here in schools locally whose young children have received explicit photos from people through this AirDrop feature. Where's Apple? So now phones are bad. I mean, like, again, people who say guns, people don't kill people, guns kill people. These are then you have to be able to say there are bad people and they will use whatever tools possible to do bad things. It's not Facebook's fault.
We don't let children who are of poor judgment buy guns before the age of 18.
But you put the phone in their hand.
That's what I'm arguing for.
So take away their phone. It's not Facebook's fault. Bad people who want to exploit children are going to find ways to do that. And as a parent, you do everything you can to protect them. But
no, they don't.
You try.
You set the bad example. You sit at the table. Go to the restaurant. People sit at the table and they're sitting there in their phones. No conversation. Kids are at the table. I've never done that. I mean, you know what I mean? But it's an addiction.
One of the creators I follow on YouTube, his whole shtick is he reacts to videos of family vloggers, like mommy vloggers, and, he is in the camp of you shouldn't exploit your child for views, which, correlates to money on the internet because there's sick people out there who will take photos of your child in a very innocent situation and use it for nefarious purposes.
Right.
He has done deep dives on some of these child predator rings, if you want to call them, or, people who save these photos for nefarious purposes. And Pinterest is an app that people are using to distribute this stuff.
Really?
Yeah, which is, for anyone who's not familiar with what Pinterest is, it's kind of like a site that you go to get,
recipes,
home decor.
Or home decor ideas, DIY projects. And they're able to use an app as innocent as Pinterest
for bad
to
things.
Still exploit children in nefarious ways.
I would argue, though, that Pinterest is not in the same genre as Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat.
But Hannah's
that's what I'm
you're
saying.
Wrong.
Pinterest.
Right. What about the debate you get to? The debate that we had before with the same kind of thing leveled at Elon Musk over oversight of Twitter/X. I think it's kind of the same debate.
Yeah.
Look, here's holier than thou, Jim. Thou shalt keep religion and the good book off the air. Save it for Sunday. I'm sorry. This is your Judeo-Christian founded nation. We must recognize those roots because that's what brought us to the dance. And if we forget those roots, if we cut those roots, if we pull that bush up by its roots, all is lost. And we're seeing it happen. The culture is depraved. There are no stigmas associated with immoral, base, foul behavior. It's whatever I want to do is good. Now we got polyamory. It's all good. Anyone that wants to argue against polyamory, polygamy, man-boy sex, you tell me why that shouldn't be justified. Because there's no rules. If it feels good, we should do it. I'm arguing the absurd to make a point.
Randy, did you remember your eye drops this morning?
No,
I'm
sorry.
Polyamory was the number one story on the Wall Street Journal last week. So, I agree. The culture, we have a cultural problem. But
oh my gosh,
why are we pointing? I guess I don't think we should be pointing the finger at big tech. That's not our problem.
Jack says, here we go. Roger says the apple was eaten long ago and cannot be uneaten. This is the marijuana slippery slope argument that I would like to offer, but of course it's worthless. Okay, so just because we got an apple that led to the downfall of the human race because of our original sin, and now, it's okay. Hey, if it feels good, I'll do it. Now we should have a bushel of apples? Let's do a bushel of apples.
We just got a text from listener John at 874-9390. He said, "Dear Wake Up Mid-Missouri, even though Randy is now officially my hero for reading the Bible on the air, Stephanie is right."
No, I was just making a point that sometimes too much access to too much, quote, knowledge, and by that I mean, knowledge of the flesh and knowledge of the non-flesh, in the wrong hands is not the right thing. And that's why I'm worried about kids.
Who gets to decide? Hannah is exactly right. And this is where we go. You're talking about a slippery slope, and I think we can all agree child exploitation, child pornography, wrong. But we're talking about censorship. What should and shouldn't be censored.
I didn't get to finish my screed.
But I'm, Hannah's right. I mean, we get on these big tech companies because they're deciding that bloody deer is bad and this is good and whatever. And we can all agree child pornography bad.
We can spend the rest of the show.
But we're opening the door to them telling us Donald Trump bad, bloody deer bad.
From a legislative standpoint, I'm not saying they shouldn't exist.
Government bad.
230 needs to go away.
No, you're wrong.
They should not be immune from
free speech good, government regulation bad.
Sorry, it's going to ruin it. I ought to be able to go back on these. They're acting like a beating. But of course, Mark Zuckerberg, I think, was most prominent on the video feeds around the globe. And we've been talking about the hazards of tech for kids, because if not managed properly, that, if you will, tree of the fruit of good and evil can lead to bad things for kids. And I would maintain, it was funny, Stephanie, you were talking about, you had something chat, Yahoo chat or AOL chat.
Yeah, just AOL chat.
I grew up in a time before that. We had wired phones. We had sandlot baseball.
Yeah.
We had girls playing whatever girls do, And I don't think that the
Barbies.
Barbie. I don't think that the and cooking things and whatever girls did. I don't know. My sister did girly stuff. I did boy
Easy
stuff.
Easy bake oven.
And I don't think that the pace of incoming potentially damaging and addictive information just wasn't possible in a pre-tech time, pre-chat. And I'm going to throw something out there we can talk about later. It's possible that the recognition of the hazards of tech, we're going to talk about some advice that you can give to parents that want to control the tech for their kids. And we have a couple texts coming in as well, 573-874-9390. This AI thing, ironically, may lead to a time when people abandon tech because you don't know. If I see something coming in on an electronic device 5 years from now, I have no clue if it is a makeup, a deep fake. I have no clue. So I'm only going to trust when I can look you in the eye and watch your lips move and hear what you say to believe it or read what you write.
But
maybe.
I have the Neuralink, Randy.
Ooh.
So how do you protect yourself
John,
against
help
that?
us. She has Neuralink. She's going to do a Matrix mind meld with all of us.
Elon Musk controls me.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm already hearing some people say, I'm sort of checking out of Facebook. People are taking Facebook and social media vacations. Do you do that?
No.
Okay. That was a stupid question.
Absolutely
I knew the answer before
not.
that. Okay. So let's talk about, you have an app where you can sort of keep an eye on and control what your kids are looking at.
Kind of.
What's it called?
Well, I have an Eero, EERO, and this is not a commercial, but I kind of sourced it on Facebook, and I said, hey, funny enough, and I was like, hey, parents, like, what do I need for my kids? Because my kids were coming home with Chromebooks from school. They don't have a phone or whatever, and at school there are certain things that are blocked. Mm-hmm. But then I asked, they say, search this up, Mom, and I say, you search that up, and then they were able to get
that up.
Yeah, they were able to get on Google and find like business websites and stuff. And so I realized like that same blocking that happens at school is not blocked on their device, and I'm like, I really don't know what else they're doing, how do I control all of their devices? And they had iPads originally, which you can have parental controls over that, but is there something that lays over the top that I can control everything? And this attaches to your router, so I can control each of the devices individually, and then if one kid is being particularly bad, I can turn all of their stuff off at once.
Stephanie
from my
is
phone,
Big Brother,
which is really, but it also does have like an adult filter on it, and so it is supposed to be blocking any sort of underage bad whatever. I don't look at every webpage my kids pull up, but I think and it sends you a little report of like all what it's been blocking, and it blocks. I don't know. I could be more, but we're getting texts about who is this? This is Buffy, and she says her son's 12. They did a lot of research, and they ended up with a phone called TrueMe, which I've not heard. TROOMI, and she said it's basically a dumb phone. She didn't say that, but it has no internet access, only texting and calling. And
like a burner phone, same kind of a difference.
Like a burner phone.
So we had friends who went through this with, with kids who had school supplied tablets, and they were able to find a hack to make, VoIP, voice over internet protocol Wi-Fi calls
They're
from their
smart.
school, from their school tablet.
consistently, but I listen to you on the air here. Nice to know you.
Good morning. Nice to meet you too. I'll have to make sure I come by the studio one morning instead of doing this via phone.
That's great. Well, if they can, let the security guards to let me into the Capitol, or maybe I'll come down and say hi to you sometime.
If anybody who's listening ever, including you, of course, wants to come by the Capitol and doesn't want to wait through the lines, just call my office. I'll come and let you in. I think that this is silly. It's the people's house. Like, we shouldn't have all this extra.
There you go.
I find it pretty annoying.
Hey, let me ask you about Senate Bill 811 that you've sponsored. Modifies provisions relating to child protection. So you're involved in that arena. We're going to talk about initiative petition reform, obviously. We want to get there, too. But in light of the Senate testimony yesterday and the fiery, back and forth between Josh Hawley and others with Mark Zuckerberg, what are your thoughts about social media and what, if anything, the state can do to try to put a little shield around those youngins?
Yeah, it used to be that there were things that were done that were pretty basic measures to protect people. Pornography that was sold in stores had to be wrapped and behind a counter so that kids couldn't see it. And we've really lost all of those types of protections that are in place. And so I haven't actually had a chance to watch the hearings yesterday, although I have seen comments about it on social media. I haven't been able to watch the whole hearings yet. And I haven't been able to read Senator Hawley's proposals, but there is a real and deep concern from parents about protecting their kids, and we're seeing kind of what the long-term effects are for kids, not just kind of changing their brain structure from a dopamine hit to try to get an instant gratification as you're scrolling, but also suicide and kind of, this ideation that's happening for people when they don't live up to these ideals about the way our bodies don't really look. All of this fake, this kind of fake glorification of people, and like fake glorification. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's kind of early for me still, but this kind of messed up view of the way that people are supposed to look as girls in particular are growing up. And you hear about 12-year-old little girls trying to be on diets. And so, I think it's something that's really important.
Not everyone can have that Adonis body like Hauswirth, Marsh, and me, after all.
Right, exactly. But we haven't met in person yet, but I'm sure I'm going to be astounded.
Not this again. Listen, we already had to, vomit through the idea of a Wake Up Mid-Missouri men's calendar this week.
John, you had a question for Senator Coleman.
Yeah, Senator, we saw the House yesterday pass a bill to allow students to transfer to the surrounding school districts. What do you think the fate of open enrollment this year on the Senate side?
Yeah, I think you see education freedom is becoming more and more popular. Yesterday, the House passed by 86 votes, which is the highest margin we've ever seen an education reform bill pass in the state of Missouri from that chamber. Last year, unfortunately, some of the education freedom bills were killed by a filibuster at the end of session. I'm concerned that might happen this year as well. So we're going to see kind of what happens next. Senator Andrew Koenig does have a bill on the calendar that would expand the education savings accounts program. It's always possible that when you have an education reform or, kind of any bill that deals with these types of a specific issue can turn into something else. So maybe we'll see open enrollment be added to Senator Koenig's idea. Whenever that bill will come up. I never want to bet against us, but I'm concerned about the level of chaos that's being caused in the chamber, betting that something will get done. But certainly education freedom is something that every single member of the majority party has said publicly they want. And we see that polling not just exceptionally well in Republican voters, but Democrat voters too. I mean, I think it's an 80-20 issue. Maybe it's like 75-35 for Democrats and a 90-10 issue for Republicans. People really, really want to see this done. They know that parents, not administrators, know what's best for their kids, and letting parents have some more options is really, really popular.
Senator, we appreciate you joining us live. The pro tem yesterday, Caleb Browden, told us that he it's certainly a possibility of initiative petition reform, and also he mentioned school choice and some of the other school reform bills. From his perspective, he'd like to see those come up next week. In terms of initiative petition reform, I want to ask you about the criticism from the Democrats is that and I saw their signs on TV this week, simple majority, and they would argue that Republicans are undermining the will of voters. Now, the Republicans basically say, no, these are out-of-state groups that are coming in. What say you?
We're really bad at talking about issues. Initiative petition reform sounds like I need to fix my computer, right? But what we're talking about is trying to make sure that really, isn't that kind of what it sounds like? I mean, IP reform, who the heck knows what that means? And so then people can say it means all kinds of crazy things. But what we're talking about is making sure that our founding documents can't be altered by one vote. In the last 20 years, we've had really just over a dozen changes that have happened to our state constitutions when we've had less than 24 in the 200 years of America's founding documents. So people should be able to change the laws if they're mad that the legislature hasn't been able to make those changes. But that should be done in the law, in the statutes, not in our founding documents, not in our Constitution. And that's really what we're talking about as Republicans. We're wanting to make sure that it's harder to change our our founding documents, not that it's harder to change policy.
So they always accuse me of getting very lawyerly and nerdy.
Not her. No, not our Stephanie. No.
I know.
It's for sure Stephanie.
No, but I know Senator Coleman is a fellow nerd with me on this. So there were so many proposals floating around on it. And, we've talked about it for years. And the Democrats are trying to say now, this is something, new. No, you guys, the proposals have been floated for 5 years. And I think there were 11 bills in that committee. So talk to us about what the Senate has kind of come to a consensus on and what you think will then get over to the House.
So Senator Searpoy, when I stopped by his office yesterday, I traveled literally to every Senate office, almost like I was door knocking in the Capitol. I started on the fourth floor and went to every single senator's office. I wasn't able to talk to every senator. There were some meeting with constituents or unavailable, but I don't know that we're at a consensus quite yet. And as a fellow lady lawyer, I don't want to try to lose your audience over that they're the smartest in mid-Missouri. Of the different ways that we're looking at kind of changing how we approve changes to our founding documents, to our Constitution, there's an idea called concurrent majority. And concurrent majority means we want to have not just a majority of a vote on any given election, but also a majority of a certain geographic area. And so some of the differences between the bills that were proposed were congressional districts, some were state house districts, some were state Senate districts. My preference is in line with Missouri Right to Life idea and also in line with the way that we collect signatures to put something on the ballot. And that is a majority of the congressional districts. Right now you have to collect signatures to put something on the ballot in 6 of 8 congressional districts. I think to change the Constitution, you should have a simple majority of the congressional districts. So 5 of 8 congressional districts should have to be an agreement on an idea to pass. And the reason why is kind of the same idea of the Electoral College, right? We don't want to roll over some of our more rural areas in the state. If the 3rd district is a great example, a lot of times people aren't going to be spending money trying to talk about these issues in the 6th or in the 8th, but certainly in the 3rd congressional district, it's less likely that people are going to campaign there. So it's important that a majority of the state really wants an idea and not just a majority of the population centers. Did I lose you guys?
No, you're good. You're good.
No, and we've heard that from Brian Hauswirth here on the program, with marijuana, for example. So like every rural county voted against it, but obviously the cities voted for it. And so, you kind of get, you roll over the rural counties on some of these really blue issues, even though Missouri's a red state.
Yeah, and that's another great example. Legalizing marijuana, maybe a majority of Missourians do really want to have marijuana be legalized, but if that's the case and they want to put it in the Constitution, there shouldn't be the administrative functions of how that happened in the Constitution.
Yep.
But when it's as easy to change the Constitution as it is to change state statute, we've really incentivized people to be altering our founding documents, and I'm not okay with that.
Well, if you think about it, it's ironic, isn't it, that the argument in terms of 50 plus one, basically easy threshold for getting a petition to change the Constitution on the ballot actually takes ultimately the rule away from we the people. Because once it's in that Constitution, as you say, if there's something that's not quite right, and I mean, what initiative in any forum is ever right on the first iteration, right? You got to refine things.
Clean and Cleaner Missouri was a great example of that. Right. People wanted to get rid of, rightly so, lobbyist gifts, right? They didn't want people. There were nicknames for certain legislators that are still talked about in the building because they wanted so many free tickets. Yeah. Or they wanted so many free perks. And the people said, no, you're just taking your turn to represent us. This is ridiculous. We don't want you to be enriched. But the language wasn't quite right. So after Clean passed, we had to have Cleaner Missouri that made it abundantly clear what people wanted. And so it makes common sense to me that we should make it harder to change our founding documents and easier or incentivize people for changing state statutes.
Yeah, I mean, calibrating that to just the Goldilocks threshold is what you're in search of. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, I have to ask you about school accountability under Senate Bill 814, the Education Freedom Act, because I don't know, people accuse me of being too much. I'd be a terrible legislator because I'm sort of a big picture guy, but I'm thinking if the
You'd
real
be a fine House member because in the House there's so many people you have to just vote like it's like user agreements for the iPhone offering. Like, do I like the idea or do I not like the idea? I can't get into the details.
Well, it talks about report cards and accountability, and I think all of us know. Just ask Steve Jobs, who was an academic failure. Ask Bill Gates. Say what you will about his politics. The guy changed the world out of his garage and was an academic failure. The successful people in life often are not the good grade scores in high school. They don't even go. They may not go to college, but they love learning. They're curious people. They're inventive people. They're creative people. Is there a way to include, as a part of accountability, tracking what happens to people after they leave school? Because shouldn't we really be about teaching kids the love of learning and curiosity and lifelong learning, rather than, am I really the one that can get the first answer to the next trigonometry question? And is there any way to do that now with technology and the way we can, sadly, track people?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm sympathetic to your argument that we want people to be able to have other measures of success. I think that when you look at some of the, I'm blanking on the name, the apprenticeship programs, right? There are people who they're not ever going to they're ready to work. They want to earn some money. But offering different types of skill sets to students makes more sense to me than having the government track people for the rest of their lives so they can prove that the education they got was good enough.
Well, it's not tracking, but some kind of a feedback loop to try to see how folks do after the government-funded education. What's the bottom line? And I just think it ought to be something to look. Make it a voluntary thing. I don't know. Anyway, we're running out of time. Hannah's going to just never allow me to be on the air with you again, so we better limit our conversation now. But if you promise us you'll join us again, I really want to express our appreciation.
I'll come in studio next time so I can.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, we thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Or maybe you could try to sell it at an auction house. Like this fine folks over in... Oh, no, my computer crashed. Shoot!
Just make it up. That's what I do.
Make it up as you go.
Okay, here we go. There's a 285-year-old lemon that was just auctioned off across the pond in England. And it was found in a 19th century cabinet that was, given to an auction house. And in this cabinet, they found a super old lemon in the back. And it had writing all over it. It was given as a gift by a Mr. P. Lou Franchini, November 4, 1739, to Miss E. Baxter. And that is written on this 285-year-old lemon.
You mean a fruit? The lemon fruit?
Yeah.
A lemon?
Yeah, a real lemon.
How did they identify it anymore as a lemon?
It's still round. It honestly still looks pretty good. I've seen worse out of my refrigerator.
That's
honestly.
what I mean. You know how it dehydrates in the refrigerator.
It is a very dark brown, but you can still clearly see that there are things written on it. And they had the bright idea, I guess, to try to auction off this lemon. Any guesses as to what it brought at auction?
I mean, how much were those pea pads? I'd rather have an old lemon than a pea pad named after me.
I don't know. What do you think?
It's sold at auction in England for $1,780.
Holy cow.
For a dark brown, shriveled up lemon.
What would someone do with that?
Now, the 19th century cabinet that the lemon was found in sold for $40.
Come on.
$40.
Come on, that's not real.
It is real.
Don't yuck someone else's yum. Maybe someone has a collection of old lemons.
I don't get it. What the things that people buy and the things that are important to people, like eye drops. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, does everyone have a favorite possession like that, or an obsession with something that you'll probably pay way more than it's really worth just because it's special to you? Stephanie's being very quiet. We know about Hannah's Stanley Cup. We know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I like makeup.
Okay. So do you realize you're probably paying more than getting gouged?
Oh, yeah.
John, anything like that? if Larry's listening, he can call in. We can get a word on that because, I mean, that is something that hits everyone. It hits everyone. It hits low earners more than high earners, like most of these kind of things, that, like the staples we need, right? With groceries, gas, natural gas to heat your place, or the electricity to heat your place, however you do it. And that's why, I don't know, that as the economic numbers come out, it's hard to make sense of it. Aaron Hedlund from Show Me will help us do that at 8:10.
Well, and as someone who's at the gas station every fourth day, it's a real bummer.
What you get bad mileage on your car? What do you drive? A big A truck?
No, I've actually upgraded my car, so I have a 2018 now. I get almost 25 miles to the gallon. Oh. It's just got a smaller tank.
And you drive a lot.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Hey, we haven't done something in a while. You want to do some pole dancing? Oh, yeah. There you go. Listen to that trombone player. That's why I like that music. You hear that trombone player?
B flat.
There you go. Hey, so there's a new poll out which probably has the attention of the the Trump camp, and certainly gives Haley a little bit of oxygen in her flagging race. President Biden in a new Quinnipiac poll has a significant lead over former President Donald Trump in a popular vote of a hypothetical 2024 matchup. Now, Biden's leading Trump 50 to 44% after the same poll just a month ago had the incumbent edging him out 47 to 46, as there's been a downward movement in Trump's numbers there. And I don't know, upward movement in Biden's numbers. Now, there's more detail to this, though. Here's the thing. I've been saying this. Biden's numbers are driven by the support of 58% of women, 52% of independents, and 62% of voters with college degrees.
And 100% of misinformed voters.
Is that going to change? What's going to make that change for anything towards Trump? As he gets the discovery comes out in these various trials and more bad press comes out about him.
I think people are frustrated and they're mad and they don't want to see the government abuse individuals. And so that's why we've seen the uptick from Trump. Now, there's some other polling out of Bloomberg that says that if that swing voters, if Trump's actually convicted, that would change their minds. But other than that, they're really kind of locked in. Now, there's out of this morning consult poll, they're saying that Biden is trailing Trump. 48% for Trump, 42% in all the swing states for Biden. So, I think Trump's in a good spot, honestly. And I think Nikki Haley is done. I mean, who's talked about her in the last?
In a head-to-head between Biden and Haley, though, Haley beats Biden 47 to 42, but loses with the inclusion of a third-party candidate.
Ben Shapiro was talking about Nikki Haley and his #1 rap.
Yeah.
No, but remember,
no, that was Nicki Minaj.
Oh, it was?
I think so.
Wasn't it?
But remember,
we should listen.
Shoot.
I mean, the polling has not been stellar as of late. I think, we were supposed to have a red wave and, all of this. And it's really not been great. Now, in the past, though, I would say it was underrating Trump and we got a bump. We didn't see that for the red wave. And I think the pollsters were thinking the same thing, that there are these hidden Trump voters who weren't answering their phones in bunkers or something.
They weren't wrong in Iowa. They were accurate.
They were right on.
Yeah.
So
with this poll, what's this poll saying about independence? Did they track that?
Yeah, they did. And independents. Okay, so among independents, 52% are Biden, and 62% of college. How is it that? Okay, for those of you out there that are college folks, other college folks, maybe alumni that you buddy with, you follow on Facebook, and certainly some of them are Bidenistas. Could you please let us know 573-874-9390 what would lead a highly educated person to want to vote for Joe Biden?
Because they just went through higher ed institutions like Harvard and Yale, and they're brainwashed.
What about alumni of Columbia? I mean, Mizzou. You think they're voting for Biden?
But you're assuming that just because you have a degree that you're smart. You might be book smart.
Well, and I think that a lot of them are voting for Biden because they dislike Trump that much. And when that's the alternative, it's the, old lesser of two evils type of scenario.
I have a theory.
Just one?
I have a theory.
Okay.
Women dominate the college ranks now, and they have for some time. They graduate in higher numbers. They, by far, dominate the graduate studies programs.
I mean, they're smarter.
I believe
we agree there.
And they are smarter. John, we're not going to argue. We're not even going to. That's a matter that I think we're not even going to call the previous question on that one. That's
you're back to your Adam's rib discussion there. So.
But so Stephanie, I think what's evolving here as I listen to the overall discussion, I hear you saying over and over again that the two-tier justice system, the weaponization of the DOJ, if it happens to Trump, it could happen to me. That's an overwhelmingly strong argument in favor of Trump. I would maintain that if you put that in the pro-Trump, bucket, I think it's a bigger, sharper, faster arrow of those who are worked up over abortion and who vote for I don't care who it is on the Democrat ticket. That's my argument. I think that issue trumps the weaponization of the DOJ.
But before this issue was really in the forefront, I think. You saw women siding on the Democrat side. And I will say the whole reason we got Trump, if you remember in 2016, I feel like what pushed him over the edge was the list of judges, conservative judges. And it was the pro-life movement that said, we want conservative judges on that court and we can hold our nose. And people said, how can they vote for the guy who uses bad language and, has, these indiscretions in his past? It was the pro-life movement that said, we need a conservative court. Trump promised that. And I think they could hold their nose on some of the other silly stuff because they're like, we want those conservative justices. And you heard, on the anniversary of Roe, you heard Kamala saying, look what we got. It was Trump's. Now it's our time to undo everything Trump did. And so, no, those pro-life women, that's who elected Trump. And that's why we need to maintain and vote conservative again. I mean, I'm the demo, right? Like, I'm a highly educated lady. But there are a lot of people who are in my demo who 100% are not behind Biden.
You may be highly educated, but you can still get it wrong, like on social media policy.
Oh, here we go.
I have highly educated family members, primarily on the East Coast.
But I'm not wrong on big tech, Randy.
No.
There you go.
It's here to stay, and we have to manage it. But
John, are you about to talk smack on your family members?
Go ahead.
No,
come on, John.
About enough smack right there.
Come on, we're ready. Let it rip.
They're all Dems. Had one of them and wife who lived around the corner from Bill and Hillary at Chappaqua, Long Island, and had the resist banner on the house and everything. And they're ever Bidens for sure.
Yeah. And on the I want to go back to the abortion measure for just a sec though, because I think the issue is like, I'm not hearing that from people. You know what? I really want to go out there and I want the ability to kill babies or whatever. Like, it's not something that it only affects a small sect of people, right, that have to be in that, we hope no one's in that position where they have to make that choice. But when you're talking about government coming after people and the anger that people feel, I know a handful of people who have had to make tough choices regarding pregnancies. I know everyone I know has been affected by government overreach, by the government putting the hammer down on somebody, by, abuse from the government. And that affects everybody. And I hear way more about that than I do about the abortion issue. And I think Trump's gonna get it.
But I maintain even people who would tell you in public, women that would tell you that they're pro-life and boy, this is going to get me in trouble. But I think there's a lot of people that are maybe moderate, center-right, moderate conservatives will carve out the abortion issue because of this. What to me is it's a misconstruing of everything about the founding of this country, about thousands of years of human history, and about the sanctity of life. But for some reason, as our culture has eroded and as we've become it's all about me, what feels good for me. If I want the baby, it's an important entity. If I don't, it's just a ball of cells. And there are a significant number of women that they'll tell you one thing, but I think they'll go in the booth and they'll vote for the right to have abortion. I believe that.
I don't think so.
I think so.
Well, I think more people are pro-life when it comes to a decision that they would make for themselves versus pro-choice for others, if that makes sense.
How can women How can any woman, if you're a pro-choice woman, call me not now. Call me
and text us
8:35 or text me. How can women be in favor of exterminating 50% of would-be women? How in the world can a rational, sentient human being who is XX chromosome be in favor of exterminating 50% of which those exterminations will exterminate a would-be XX Homo sapiens?
The FSB, the former KGB, has already released their 2024 propaganda fundraising calendar. The front has cover art of an improbably ripped Vladimir Putin giving his best sultry stare while leaning on a big black tank. November image, rather apocalyptic, a Russian Special Forces soldier standing in front of the U.S. Capitol with drones and helicopters attacking it. The final image, a very well-developed female Russian spy with 2 strategically placed AK-47s. And the real question is, why does a Russian security service need to fundraise? Now you know the rest of that story.
Oh, my gosh.
Do we know the rest of the story, though, if we have questions?
Is this the Natasha? The Natasha character out of
Boris
some of the old
Natasha
out of some of the old James Bond movies. Remember in the 80s, all of the Spy Who
I was
Loved Me
thinking
and all
the
that
Rocky
stuff?
and Bullwinkle.
Oh, you were
ones.
thinking that. No, remember all of the James Bond things. You know what? It was always they always had the
Russian
female who was and she was always his nemesis, but he couldn't resist her because he couldn't resist any good-looking woman. I tell you.
You were telling, and he doesn't have very much hair, and that's what we were talking about this earlier. And you said if you go bald, you have to be like really ripped as a dude. You think
do
that? Why?
Yeah. My favorite. I was showing Stephanie earlier. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but do you remember a few Super Bowls ago they debuted a commercial for Mr. Clean, and the house
super hot. And
the ladies there,
tight.
Boy, he's got the tight pants, and he's buff, and he's cut
shaved
like
head with the earring.
Yeah, and he's ripped. And this gal, she's in her house. She probably just got done watching a soap opera or something, sort of a traditional stereotype, and he comes in and he gives her the look, and she's like, "Who's this?" And then he swaggers around and he's dancing and he's using his cleaner and he's cleaning everything, and she's dancing with him, and they show her on one side of the shower glass with a sponge,
steamy.
and he's on the other side, and they're doing the dance, and then all of a sudden he turns into dad bod husband standing there.
But the whole point is like women love a man who can clean, and amen, right? And so she's like, and then she like jumps her husband, and she's like, I don't care what you look like as long as you help me clean the house.
Yeah, because he's standing there. Yeah,
Show me that magic eraser.
But we were talking about that because you were Trump's canning his hot lawyer. Right?
Yeah, he's canning Alina Habba, who I guess because he didn't win the trial, he lost, $83 million, And she came out in a fiery speech after that that trial, that verdict, or from the judge.
Who's going to handle it now? I wonder, my former neighbor, John Sauer?
Well, you wonder, this guy rips through attorneys like, it's crazy. And what does that tell you, Stephanie, as an attorney? Does that tell you, how would you, if you were asked by Donald Trump, hypothetically, to come on his team, would you have a little trepidation about that? Do you vet your client? Do lawyers vet their client?
They can, yeah. Yeah, I think a little bit. I mean, you want to make sure it's a right fit. I want to make sure that when, people are paying me that I think I can help them.
Okay. So if it's a hopeless situation or a hopeless client, you may say, I don't know.
Yeah, I bet the hourly rate might go up a little. You would hope.
But you want to, I don't want to take someone's money if I think that there's no path forward, right? So, you talk to them and say, is this the right fit? Am I the right person? Do I think I can provide you a service?
Yeah.
I think that's an important conversation. Yeah. But no, if the president or the former president calls and says, I want you to join the team, I think you serve.
So you think any publicity is good publicity? Because, ultimately you're going to be canned and demeaned. It's not if, it's when. That's what happens to everyone in Trump's wake, except his family.
I think, it's a tough call at this stage, knowing his past.
Now, you think he's going to change? Come on.
If he's in the administration and he asks you to come join the administration, and serve, then I think the answer is yes. Right now, he's not elected. I would have trouble. But you said you think he picked her because she's pretty, but she's made some missteps. And I think, coming out and railing against the judge in front of a courthouse, we've heard from our good friend Jennifer Bukowski, that's something you would never do. And it does him no good. And, his case is going up on appeal and saying, judges kind of stick together. So having her and, him, honestly, railing against, the judicial system and judges, I don't think I don't think is a good thing. And serves your client, and that's been tough to watch.
We've heard for so many years what a tough boss he was to anybody in any level, whether it was in his real estate operations or anything. He 6.
But
Well,
it's warmer. Yesterday was beautiful.
I had to giggle a little bit because, I type up the forecast for everyone in the building before the show starts every morning, and National Weather Service had chance of sprinkles listed for today. And I thought that was cute. I hadn't seen that one before. It's normally slight chance of rain.
It's like Seattle or London. My little weather app shows a cloud every day for the next 10 days.
Well, more of that.
Pacific Northwest for you.
We were just getting resolution in our seasonal affective disorder for a few days.
I got my light on this morning.
Yeah, she's got her
We're
light
going to
on.
need a bigger light.
Yeah. Well, to help enlighten us on what's going on in the fire hose of information coming at us from the Bureau of Economic Statistics, whatever they're called, the GDP people, and then from the Fed yesterday, Bidenomics working, they say. The media says a soft landing, but those of us are looking at the gas price going from, $2.70 to $2.90 or in no time, is Aaron Hedlund. Dr. Hedlund is the chief economist at the Show Me Institute. Aaron, thank you for calling in today and talking about this because I think we're all confused.
Yeah, great to join you as always.
All right, so last week, GDP, wow, they got out there, they were sending up the flares. Look at the Bidenomics. GDP up 3.3% in the fourth quarter of 2023, over the Wall Street forecast of 2%. That's a 2.5% annualized pace looking at 2023. Strong consumer spending, consumer sentiment up. Inflation moderating. Wow, we're in the money. What's going on? I mean, why shouldn't we elect Biden? Because Bidenomics works.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's only the data match the narrative here. I mean, so first of all, 2.5% growth for 2023. You call that B. That's kind of B level growth. Like, it's fine. It's not a bad number. It's not a great number. But here's what makes it sad, though, is that growth number comes because of massive borrowing. So we're talking about a doubling of the annual deficit to be essentially $2 trillion. And the amount of debt increase that year is bigger than the amount of GDP increase. So that's like kind of talking about, I'm going to throw a bunch of money on a credit card and I can spend more. Well, duh, but that's not very impressive. And there's many reasons to believe it won't be sustainable, not to mention the fact that purchasing power is still down from 2019, so people cannot afford as much.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. You mentioned borrowing. Does that apply to businesses, individuals, the government, all of the above? Who's borrowing to fuel that?
Well, multiple groups, actually. So for one, the federal government borrowing has gone up dramatically. I mean, we know we've had a borrowing problem for a long time, but to go from 1 year to the next and essentially double the deficit when we're not even in a recession is completely bizarre. The old-time Keynesians used to talk about you increase deficits during downturns. Nobody has ever said you double deficits when you're not in a downturn. So that's completely unsustainable. And then at the same time, when you go to consumers, consumer spending has been fueled largely by exhausting the rest of the stimulus money that people had in their checking accounts, which was at over $2 trillion of accumulated savings from stimulus, and that was basically gone. And credit card debt is over $1 trillion, and delinquency rates are the highest they've been since 2011. So clearly people are not on a sustainable path right now.
Now, in the past, when we've asked you about 2024, you mentioned these Trump-era tax cuts were coming up and were, set to essentially sunset, and that you had concerns, as we entered the election season about whether or not those would be renewed. Yesterday, the House passed a bill that at least renewed part of those taxes, tax cuts. Have you had time to kind of drill down on what's in there and what's not, and what are your thoughts on that proposal?
Yeah, I've looked at that. So first of all, nothing in the proposal makes those tax cuts permanent. It really just takes some of those tax cuts and adds a year or two to them, which is, I think, a positive change for some of that. So, for example, businesses are able to expense a lot of their investments. That's one of the big, which essentially makes it cheaper to invest and encourages investment. That was one of the big reforms from the 2017 tax bill, and that was starting to phase out, and the bill that was passed yesterday kind of keeps it going for a little bit longer. So that's good and really should be made permanent. But then as part of a compromise, they did kind of put a bunch more money into the child tax credit with some provisions there that I'm not a huge fan of because they can discourage work. But, overall, I think it's sort of fine that passed, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still going to expire. 2025 is the big cliff year. We need to talk about making the pro-growth elements permanent.
We're talking with, of course, the inimitable, because he really unpacks it. Having been in the administration, that's really cool, in Donald Trump's administration, Dr. Aaron Hedlund from Show Me Institute, the chief economist there, about the economy and where we're headed.
Aaron, talk to us about heightened tensions in the Middle East. We're seeing it at the gas pump. Is this going to have more of an effect on, when we're talking about freighters and tankers trying to avoid the Suez Canal and the Red Sea?
Well, I don't claim to be a geopolitical expert, but I don't think it requires an expert to see the world on fire in a number of different places right now. It's kind of a chaotic foreign policy situation. And this is precisely why we need to have an energy dominance agenda. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could look at the Middle East and not wonder about how it's going to affect gas prices and energy here to nearly the extent that it has in the past? So, yeah, I mean, that sort of chaos can create problems that could cause supply disruptions. Someone who's more steeped in the details of the conflict might know a little bit more, but I don't anticipate that having a dramatic effect unless there's a massive escalation.
Professor, we appreciate you joining us. I want to talk more about, rather than the government, although that's important as well, what's happening here locally in mid-Missouri. Ed Scavone, who is the bank president at Central Bank of Boone County, was on 93.9 The Eagle recently with Fred Perry, and I verified this number with him, but he said the median home price, and it goes up and down a little bit, but right now the median home price in Columbia is $350,000. I'm going to repeat that because that may surprise some of you. I remember it was $172,000. $350,000, the median home price in Columbia in Boone County. And my question is very simple. How many of our listeners, how many people listening to this show can afford a $350,000 home? Do you have any idea? Because I don't.
Well, I can tell you one thing. So housing has not been this unaffordable here and just throughout the nation as a whole, really ever, because you can look at the combination of high interest rates and high house prices. That's the new thing, because sometimes people will bring up, well, in the early 1980s, you had a lot higher interest rates. Sure, but house prices were way lower. So when you have high rates and high prices, that's the toxic combination. And I would say this, so someone who buys a $350,000 house, if you finance most of that with a mortgage, then your mortgage payment is probably about $1,000 higher per month now with current mortgage rates compared to what it was a few years ago. That's $1,000 more per month, not the total payment. That's just the change. That's certainly pricing a lot of people out of the market.
So let's talk about that further. Okay, so spending is up. People are exhausting their COVID money. They're putting more on their credit card. People are looking at houses out there because, and I guess it relates to the core question, jobs. We saw massive cuts in media, massive cuts in tech. Are those carve-out sectors in the economy? Are those canaries in the coal mine in terms of the job's future? And when people are forced to move because they need a job and may have to move locations, what is that going to do to the mix?
So I would say something like media layoffs, that's probably more kind of a change in what the economy is looking like sector-wise. I don't see that as necessarily spreading everywhere else. To me, I'm more concerned about if there's any sector that's going to have a spillover effect. I'm more thinking about commercial real estate, because you have these higher rates and a lot of vacant office buildings, and you have a lot of this debt is probably bad debt, and small banks have a lot of that bad debt. So the big question is going to be, how high do rates stay high for long, or do rates fall and kind of give a reprieve? Because there's probably really $1 trillion+ of losses that are just sitting out there, and they haven't really been fully realized yet.
Yeah. It's funny, when Donald Trump was in office, he touted the market as being the barometer of his great economy. And he was criticized for that because people on the other side said, well, yeah, those who are invested in the market, that's great. But, for, lower income Americans, they're just working check to check. But Biden is doing the same. But someone told me the other day from the financial side that, hey, there's just a few, ironically, tech stocks that are really driving this bull market we've seen since late in the year. does that tell us? What do the markets tell us? Is it something that we really should take with a big grain of salt when we hear reports about, quote, the economy?
So when I'm looking at the markets, I'm looking more at earnings reports than I am just the price, because stock prices are driven both by those sort of fundamental earnings as well as expectations and interest rates. And so to the extent that earnings come in strong, we'll see how those look. If that's the case, then that's certainly good news for the economy, but to be seen. And I'll say this about you mentioned President Trump talking about the stock market. The thing is, back then, from 2017 up until COVID, you didn't just have to look at the stock market. You could look at paychecks. I mean, paychecks were rising very rapidly, much faster than inflation. The typical family saw paychecks go up by $6,000 after subtracting the inflationary part of that. And actually, blue-collar incomes went up faster than the upper incomes. So that was really broad-based prosperity, no matter how you look at it. And the reason people aren't happy right now, despite the GDP numbers that were, again, kind of B level, is that their paychecks are not keeping up with inflation, and that's really the key issue.
Well, if there's a component that drives inflation related to the labor market, in other words, if I've got to pay more for my employees, I got to charge more, and everyone else has to charge more, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Why wasn't that the case when Trump was in office? Why was inflation remaining low, but wages going up? How come that wasn't factored in and driving inflation then?
Well, I mean, the key driver of compensation is productivity. You want economic productivity to go up, and that allows pay to go up without prices going up. And so what you saw from 2017 until COVID was that productivity was strong, and that enabled actual purchasing power to rise. And you also had deficits, which were not insane in the way they are now. Of course, there's long-standing issues about drinking those beyond what we've seen for many years. But at least as a share of the economy, debt was kind of stable at that point in time. You look at the past couple years, 2023 had some okay productivity rebound, but 2022 and 2021 were basket case for productivity. And again, what that means is that in that scenario, if you're in an environment where productivity is flat, then any increases in pay can only be paid for by increases in prices. And that's why people haven't been able to keep up.
Okay, so that Time for the morning bell.
It is, and we are looking at the markets this morning. We've had some record closes as of late.
Time for the morning bell.
It is, and the futures are mixed this morning.
Wow. Deja vu.
It's Groundhog Day on the morning bell.
The Dow is just slightly down, but the S&P and NASDAQ are up. And I think tech stocks, and there's some earnings reports this week that are affecting that. Of course, we've already talked about how gas prices spiked overnight here in mid-Missouri. But I want to get back to this comment from Brian Hauswirth when he was asking Aaron about home prices, because I feel like I'm obsessed with real estate. I always have my eye on like what's out there, and I'm always thinking maybe I will, upgrade my home. And I have been absolutely, Brian, it's unreal. And Hannah, you're in the home buying market. And I remember I'm
in the home wanting market. Okay. I don't know if I'm in the home buying just yet, but we would like to be there.
But I remember being a first time home buyer and thinking, okay, my budget's $150,000. I don't know that you could get that.
Well, and of course,
that won't buy much of anything.
Of course, for us, wanting to buy in California, Missouri, your options are already limited. It's hard to find a home under, $220,000.
Well, and then what we heard also from the realtors, I think a while back, was the way that people were going to, the builders were going to start controlling prices is that they were just going to start building smaller homes. And so jaw dropped earlier this week when it came through on my little Zillow report, an Ashland home, okay? 3 beds, 2 baths, square footage, 1,650 square feet. Like, I think I had an apartment that was about that. That is...
Well, a tiny home is 800 or 900, right?
Yeah. So, that has to be a smaller home. My starter home that I paid less than $200,000, I think was about 1,800 square feet. 3 beds, 2 baths. They want $345,000 for 1,600 square feet. That's a starter home.
Well, my rental that we are paying, $800 a month for, it's not even 900 square feet. And we're feeling it.
Yeah, that's 30 by 30. Do your math,
I don't know where to point the finger, but I'm confident that's because we do not have a free market in housing. I can't figure it out, but there's government either enablement or regulation or suppression of competition. Something's up here.
Well,
there's limited properties on the market too that really contributes to it.
Certainly, and we just covered an article in the Journal, and it was how many young adults were living in their parents' basement. If I was buying 1,600 square feet for $345,000, I would also be living in my parents' basement because I think that's your only option.
Yeah. So, but normally when the interest rates go up, prices go down, but this isn't happening. Because I guess it's because people got I think it's a psychological thing. We were used to incredibly and artificially low interest rates in both Republican and Democrat administrations for so long that I think people got used to being able to buy more than maybe they should or could, you know what I mean? And now that interest rates are actually up to closer to more historical levels, they're not moving because I am not going to pay that kind of an interest rate. Watch party. Watch party.
That's all you were trying to say?
That's what I was trying to say.
You were so close.
I couldn't get it out. I just couldn't make it happen. I'm sorry. I've been traumatized with the earlier discussion when Stephanie and I had a spirited discussion about social media. In case you didn't catch that, you need to check out the podcast. We had a rousing first hour on social media.
I'm fired up.
Yeah, I analogized it to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you said it's a beautiful tool.
It is.
But you're protecting your kids from it. It's not that beautiful yet.
I don't have any objection to my kids using
Here
it.
we go again, John.
Don't think they need it right now.
Pass
They're
the popcorn.
But if you say guns don't kill people, right? People kill people, which I strongly believe.
And we don't let
Facebook is not causing all of the ills.
We don't let 15-year-olds buy guns.
Well,
and only shoot them under supervision.
Bad people are going to do bad things, and they'll use social media. They will use in-person, whatever. They will use AOL chat rooms.
And
they will find a way.
Unsupervised children are, by definition, bad people.
I'm not saying we shouldn't protect children.
Well, and using the gun analogy, Steph, you look at countries that have banned guns, and they still have high crime rates. Like, people will find a way.
I know. All right.
Exactly.
There's this story that's really making national news. It's a big deal.
After we talked about it.
We talked about it. So this guy, Jordan Willis, was put in handcuffs shortly after the event, where after the January 9th Chiefs watch party at his house, 3 friends were found, one frozen on a chair in his backyard, and others crazy. So it turns out that he has checked himself into substance abuse rehab. His attorney saying, quote, recognized that he had a problem with addiction. Certainly they have the toxicology reports. This has to be a drug-related thing.
Is that admitting guilt, though, on his behalf in a way?
Well, it's admitting that he has a problem, but I don't know. Birds flock together. People who use drugs flock together. People who drink flock together. People who like the Chiefs flock together. We're social animals. It's a biological reality. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But the police continue to say, Brian Hauswirth, that there's no homicide here, right? They're not investigating it as a homicide.
Where's this at?
This was over in
Kansas City,
right?
Kansas City, yeah. I heard you guys talking about yeah, not a local case specifically, but I did. So no one was killed. It sounds like
3 people died, but they said no foul play.
No foul play.
Here's the missing link. The 5th man,
terrible case.
David Harrington, Ricky Johnson, Clayton McGeeney were found dead in the backyard. Their cars were in the front. The family was knocking on his door. He didn't answer. But there's a 5th man, Alex Waymer-Lee, according to TMZ, of course, who has the definitive word in reporting, attended the event but reportedly left the party early. He's the key, right?
Yeah, he would have the key. And I don't know specifically. I've got my hands full with local stories, but I will tell you this. I know some people mock it and say what you want about TMZ. Say what you want. I've seen their, years ago, they would have this segment on television locally where you could see their stuff. But by and large, whatever you think about them, they generally, when they report something, it's usually accurate. And and I don't know how they get some of their stuff, but and Stephanie, they must have an army of lawyers over there because they do.
Well, get a load of this. You drill down in this story, TMZ has uncovered that one of the men had an active pharmacist license, which was issued last year and set to expire at the end of May this year.
And another one of them had a drug conviction in that same story. So they said, again, it seems like we've seen that, like, it's a lot of victim blaming and, all of that. And it's like, they should be transparent, because if these guys, it's weird. What if you got I don't know enough about drugs, but what if you got drugs that were laced with fentanyl? Well,
exactly.
Two people didn't. The guy who left the party early and the guy who owns the home. So then did you give that? Like, why didn't you, if whatever they were sharing was bad.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Why did 2 people survive and 3 people die?
And this was when temperatures were well below zero.
It was snow all over the ground.
And they were found outside.
Yes.
Yeah, goodness.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you.
People can't survive that.
Throughout the years, I have had patients tell me, Doc, I have this terrible, name the problem, it could be I've got an infection, I've got a mental health problem, I have some anxiety, I've got a back pain, and I borrowed my friend gave me some pill out of their bottle. Please, I'm on my metaphorical knees here. Do not take a medication given to you, even if it's allegedly by your best friend from a pharmacist out of their cabinet. Don't do it unless you get it from a licensed pharmacist or a physician's office, because physicians can dispense in Missouri. Do not take it. That's where a lot of these fentanyl deaths are occurring, because these are things that look like they look everything like Tylenol or Viagra. I mean, it's
Ketamine.
everywhere. Ketamine. Yeah. Please do not do it. Do not take a Viagra that your friend gives you. I mean, guys. I'm serious, because you don't know where it's coming from.
What about the stuff they sell in the gas station?
What stuff?
Didn't we hear this from Rathert that they had like men enhancing drugs in gas
yeah,
stations?
That's the place to go get enhanced men, is go to the local gas station and buy that makes a lot of sense.
Right up there with gas station sushi.
I mean,
right?
I'm sorry.
It's a corn dog with it.
And if you don't admit that you voted for Donald Trump. I mean, come on. That makes us look like idiots.
You do bring up a You bring up a great point.
What are you thinking?
You bring up a very good point about getting it from a licensed pharmacy, though, because you've got to be very careful out there. There is no doubt about that. That's just a terribly sad story.
It is. I mean, it's sad. It's not victim shaming, but I think people are making foolish moves, and you can have a problem with addiction to prescription drugs, right? You can have a problem with addiction to alcohol. There's a reason we regulate alcohol, and we make sure that it's not methanol, wood alcohol in there, that it's ethanol. That's the reason for some sense of regulation. And it's just, please, I'm just telling you, this is why these deaths are happening.
Yeah. I know you guys also talked about it this morning, and your point's very well taken. That's a terrible story, and forgive me, I just don't know a lot about it.
It's just a shame.
I encourage everybody to take a look when they get a chance at Senator Josh Hawley's Twitter feed and look at the responses to the progressives are taking him a little bit to task about getting him to get Zuckerberg to apologize. They're bringing up January 6th, all these, which doesn't have anything to do with, by the way, what he was talking about yesterday. But the reality is, I was shocked to see Zuckerberg stand up and turn around and apologize. That's a big deal. And the camera people were clearly taken aback. Those camera people usually sit up front in front of the witness table, but I've never seen anything quite like that.
Did you see them all get up? It was like a swarm.
It was huge, and it was a big deal. And that appeared to me, I can't imagine Zuckerberg planned that. It looked, he didn't seem to have anything prepared to say, but it was just for someone that almost everything that man does is scripted. That did not appear to be scripted at all. He could never have forecasted Hawley was going to ask him to do that. I just thought that was a stunning development in the Senate yesterday, and Hawley could have never imagined. That was huge on him. Too
bad he was so off mic.
You couldn't hear it great, but still you could hear it, and those people were holding up signs. I thought that was powerful.
Well, but the man has children, right? And I mean, how devastating is it personally? Would it be personally to invent, to be one of the, bright minds of your time and invent something that then people use for bad that you never intended, And so I think he came off as very genuine,
sure.
And you could see it in his face.
Have you watched Social Dilemma?
Oh,
no!
Have you seen Social Dilemma?
Yes.
Those people knowingly participated in the toxification of our youth's minds, getting them addicted to something that is destructive for them. I mean, he knew about it. He needs to be called out. He might be brilliant. Some of the most brilliant criminals in the world, some of the most effective from a criminal sense, are some of the brightest people in the world from an IQ standpoint. That doesn't mean you can't do wrongdoing.
I mean, that same algorithm supports like hundreds of thousands of small businesses. I mean, it's how we get our message out on our show and connect with the Wake Up family. And it's how during COVID, a lot of people stayed connected. So yes, there are ills with social media, but I'm not going to blame them because again, when I was young, I learned about all these same things, either on the playground, in public school, in the AOL chat rooms, and I don't blame social media for the ills of our current world.
And I do agree with Stephanie.
You're right.
I also agree. I can't read a man's heart. I'm just watching this as a journalist and watching it from afar as a citizen. It appeared to me he was genuine, and I can't imagine a PR person that would have worked for that company that would have told him to do what he did. I mean, but
how do you argue with Ted Cruz's? Ted Cruz flashed a thing that said, "Look, that they put on whatever someone clicked on that was going to be explicit or otherwise unseemly, and you're about to look at something that's explicit or unseemly, and we recommend you look at some other resources that will inform you about the damage this may do, or you can just click here and see it."
But I mean,
come on.
But also, that's the power of social media, because you know what Zuckerberg has seen? He saw the reaction to the Harvard professors in the congressional hearing who didn't stand up and apologize and weren't sorry and said horrifying things. And I think it's the power of social media that made that congressional hearing go viral that took those folks down.
Could have been.
It was huge. And kudos to Senator Hawley. It would be nice to have him on at some point. I see him on Fox News quite a bit.
Boy, would it be.
Good luck.
It'd be nice to have him on.
He was in Jefferson City on Monday.
Let me go find my
On another note, I want to compliment and thank listener Tim. I asked earlier, if you're a Biden voter, please, and a college-educated person, tell me how you can look at the difference between the Biden economy and everything under Biden and Trump. So I'm a college-educated man, Tim says. I'll tell you why I'm voting for Biden. I'm not a fan of Biden at all, but many of us feel that Trump is a dangerous buffoon. He wants to be an autocrat and showed his hand when replacing DOJ and DOD personnel after the election when they would not do his bidding. Many of us feel he's a danger to democracy, and we would not, and because of that, we would tolerate a Democrat presidency. Hannah answered him back, thanked him for, indeed, you are correct, Hannah. He definitely won't win over those undecided voters. Trump won't. Indeed, you're correct. I would vote for Haley in a minute. Well, she may not be ideal. She's not going to throw away democracy. Okay, thank you, Tim. But I would push back a little bit. I mean, if you're Donald Trump, and if you were unfairly ridiculed about golden showers, having prostitutes in Russia pee on you, and government officials bought an FBI phony, fake Hillary Clinton sponsored dossier accusing you of being a Russian spy, and Adam Schiff is accusing you and saying there's a smoking gun about that, and you have a complicit, someone that said Strzok to his lover Lisa Page, we're the insurance policy. I'd argue that there's a reason you might have a problem with the DOJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't forget Robert Mueller, that long investigation.
Yeah.
That
I have, yeah. I mean, so we got
safe bet.
Got a text in, from someone who said, "Look, I'm going to vote for Biden because Trump is deranged or he's a buffoon and he's unhinged and we might be in trouble." But at the same time, I mean, you talk about the federal government spending all of its time in trying to get Trump. The one thing if Trump was there, what those people would be doing? Hopefully they'd be taking care of that Chinese spy balloon on day one. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm voting for Trump, right? Because say what you want about his personality or whatever else, I feel safer with him at the helm than sleepy Joe Biden.
Right, and perhaps directing Border Patrol people to be actually closing the border rather than having a director of Homeland Security that says the border's closed when it isn't. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I think I've heard that a vote might occur on that front next week. That's what they're talking about on the floor of the House. So, yeah, I think if you put yourself in Trump's position, for all of the crazy characteristics he has, And again, is he the only one who had a problem with elections? Remember, there was opposition to the certification of his electoral slate. Remember,
right?
Back in 2016. So I think it cuts both ways. I respect that, but I really don't think that Donald Trump intends to be a permanent, Vladimir Putin kind of. I love the destroying democracy thing. I think that's a bit of a trope.
Well, and Bill is weighing in and he says just because Trump was treated unfairly, it doesn't mean he deserves to be the president if his policies can be implemented by somebody without his baggage. Now, I think there are a lot of people in your camp, Bill. I mean, I think there are a lot of DeSantis people and a lot of Haley people that said, yes, we're going to get our conservative policies and we're going to leave the baggage behind. More people in Iowa, and I think now that's not going to be a choice for us. Trump's going to be the nominee. Yeah. And so it is going to come down to Trump versus Biden. And, would my first preference be someone with less baggage? Yeah, it would be. I will double down on it. I really have serious concerns about the ability of Donald Trump to win a general election with what's going on. I have serious doubt. I will maintain forever that Ron DeSantis, is arguably and objectively, in terms of things accomplished in their jurisdiction, a more effective leader. No one has a better record.
Yeah. So, but, the people will speak and we'll see what happens, Tim says he won't be Putin, but he will be Orban. Yeah, I had one of our, there was a guy earlier who, because I brought up religion and the foundations of the country and how he said, don't collect morality with religion. Yeah, I'm not an atheist, but you don't have to be religious to be a moral person. We are broken people. The human limbic system is a powerful and evil force because it comes from basically the same origins and has the same drive as animals who will do whatever it takes for survival. And the humans take it to an extra spot. Just to make a little more money, people will do unbelievable things to people. Mm-hmm. And I maintain that without the Judeo-Christian, I'll even go so far as the Abrahamic traditions, which put some limitations on what you want to do for yourself and what you will do to others. I think you can trace it back, Jim, and others who say you don't have to have religion. You know what? You can trace it back somewhere in your past. The reason you are a moral person, if you claim to be, is because you weren't left to your own devices. And I'll bet you'll find a mom or a dad or a grandma or a grandpa or a great-grandma or a great-grandpa who did crack the good book. At least that's my position, and I'm standing by it. All right, we'll see if we have more interesting convo.